What is up, everybody? Welcome in to the Liberty Lounge. I am your host, Jeremy Todd, and we got another great episode of Sell Liberty today. We got one of the coolest dudes. He is an activist. He is on the road, lives out of a tiny home, raises his family, does homeschooling, but also is one of the best consultants in our movement for candidates. And I'm not going to steal any more of his thunder. I'm going to welcome him in. Let's bring in the man, Anthony Welti. How are you, sir?
Dude, it's been a while since I've been called the man.
The man.
Brings me back to like 1997 or something. I love it. almost like the Super Bowl halftime show.
Exactly. All right. Well, Anthony, tell I can't imagine there are very many people left in the libertarian world, in the world of liberty movement, whatever, that don't know who you are. But for those who don't, give us a little background on your road to liberty and how you ended up doing what you're doing.
Yeah, man. Well, crazy enough, Ron Paul didn't bring me into the movement. Obama did. He created a libertarian out of me. Go figure, a statist creating a libertarian. No, I'm a born and bred Washingtonian. So is my wife and son. I got involved, a couple years back through the Gary Johnson campaign. Like so many others, I just got fed up with things. But I threw myself head first into this movement. And when I decided to get involved, I was like, well, if I'm going to take time away from my family, away from my friends, away from the things I really care about, to basically defend myself and defend all of our families collectively, I better actually put some real effort into this. So we dove in head first. I helped start a county chapter out in Washington. I ran for office. Yeah. We had some pretty good results out there. And since then, I've been traveling the nation, literally one city, one county, one state at a time, all the way from the Canadian border down to the Mexican border, and then all the way from Washington down to Key West, Florida. And now we're down here in Florida doing outreach. And really the objective is to meet people where they're at, bring them closer into liberty, answer their questions, let them meet a libertarian for the first time. And then we spend a lot of our time internally as well within the movement and just trying to give people a soft landing spot. There's so many new people that are frustrated with what's going on, but they don't know how to get involved. They might not have a county chapter where they're at. Maybe they've never run for office, and I've been there. Right. So my effort is really focused on helping them to get more involved, to become more more successful and more prosperous within whatever their goals are to create liberty for themselves and others.
Yeah, I think, we keep hearing this recurring theme here on Sell Liberty, which is great because anytime I've taken over a sales program, it's sort of the piece that's missing, which is to meet people where they are. But what that genuinely means is find out what matters to them and find solutions to it, create solutions that work. And so where are people at now that you're on the road and traveling? What are you hearing from the masses out there?
Yeah, well, I live a really unique lifestyle, right? And that's, some of the reason I'm on the show today. I travel full time in essentially a tiny house. It's an RV. It's right over here to my left here. It's a 28-foot tiny house, 220 square feet. It's a home that my wife and I rebuilt together with the help of a bunch of volunteers. And we literally go from one RV park, one campsite to the next, and literally just talk to people. Right. These are small communities that feel like the old school neighborhoods where people are friendly. They go out and have conversation. You're walking your dog, you meet people. And we live a little bit more of a slowed down lifestyle in the sense that we actually have conversations with one another.
Wow.
So I have a lot of conversations in the park. I was out with at a local brewery here in Florida a few hours ago with a nurse and a trauma nurse and a dental hygienist and a couple of health coaches. And just literally talking about liberty with them and just having regular conversations about freedom and how things affect our lives. And most people aren't libertarian. Most people don't necessarily want liberty like you and I might want, but they know that what they don't want is what we have, right? They're looking for a different avenue. And many of the people I've met have created it for themselves by entering the tiny home community, entering the remote work community, or entering the homeschool community. And it's been really empowering for myself. and also to bring new people in through that, right? And meet people that are already kind of thinking like us. They're doing the, work outside the system all on their own accord. But now we're able to kind of tie two things together and be like, look, it's the system that's holding you back, and you already realize that. Well, here's the solution, right? Here's the the liberty you created for yourself can be multiplied over all these other topics.
Yeah. What is your background before you got in? Like, tell what is your background before you got into the Liberty movement and then taking this big step to go on the road?
Yeah, well, I come through a customer service and sales background. I was a corporate trainer for Washington Mutual. For the young folks watching this, that's the bank that started the '08 banking collapse. No, it wasn't my fault, but Washington Mutual with the rest of the Fed kind of did it. But I was a corporate trainer, right? I stood up in front of executives, new hires. I helped create training programs. I worked overseas in Costa Rica. I guess that's not technically overseas. Now I flew across the Caribbean to get there. Or the Gulf of Mexico.
Gulf of Mexico counts.
And I taught people how to do their job. Right. Yeah. And so that's why a lot of my focus these days are teaching people how to be activists, teaching people how to be better candidates, because it's able to tie my professional experience with the political experience I have for running for office. My personal passion's jujitsu and teaching self-defense. Cool. I'm a coach. I've used to teach jujitsu back home in Washington. So I like communicating things. I like empowering people. And I like, selling something that actually brings value to people's life, and I left the banking industry because the banking industry is corrupt. I ran for state insurance commissioner because the insurance industry is corrupt. And now I get to do this, and it's really a perfect merger of multiple passions and skills that I have.
Yeah. So, one of the things, I too have, my background is in sales, and I have always sort of, twice now in my career ended up in banking myself, and I've always wanted to be sort of the banking trainer. Pursued it from a couple different angles, but I've done a lot of sales training in my background too. So what can we talk about what it felt like when you made the decision to leave? What is it, and we may have lost Anthony here. What it is to you're back. All right. So what it's like to face head on that choice of I have a good thing going here, right? Like, this is cushy, this is comfortable. I can just pursue my life myself and get myself right. Versus I'm gonna go be a servant and take a lot of risk and make what many people would consider life a lot more difficult. Can you walk us through a little bit of that journey and what you were feeling and how you dealt with that sort of massive increase in life risk, I guess?
And there really was. I had a good job. Best boss I ever worked for, actually, in the insurance industry right before I quit. My wife is still in the insurance industry. But I walked away from a good career, and really it wasn't hard for me to make the choice. The hard part was, how do we make it happen, right? Okay. And that's also some of what I help our candidates with that are running for office as a libertarian is they know they want to do this, but it's the how that becomes difficult. It takes bravery to step outside the system. It takes courage knowing that other people are doing it, right? So you can feel empowered to join them. But ultimately, really what it was for me was seeing the writing on the wall for the statism and the authoritarianism that was likely to be coming. What happened here with COVID and the lockdowns over the last couple of years, I saw that happening years ago. And I swore that I wasn't going to put particularly, I wasn't going to put my son in a position to where he couldn't be free, right? As a father, my job is to protect for him and to provide for him. And I can't protect him if I send him to public school and let him get raised by the state. I can't protect him if I put him in a school where they're forcing him to wear a mask that he doesn't need nor want to wear. Yeah. And it was little things like that, the foresight to see that coming, that really it came down to sacrificing some of my personal comforts and desires for my son, which is really easy as a dad, as you know yourself.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but
It's very easy.
I also know, and this is really important because I know there's probably other parents listening to this that, like, Anthony, I get it, right? I don't want to send my kid to that public school any more than you did, but I feel trapped, right? And what
Yeah.
I want to leave people with this comment is, like, you don't need to feel trapped. I know that's how it feels right now, but as libertarians, as forward thinkers, right, we can think outside the box. And really, it just takes commitment to the idea that I'm not going to subject myself to this anymore. I'm going to remove myself from the systems, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to make that happen. And when you can kind of come to grips with those three things, the rest of it is just about planning and figuring out what the answer is. So I want to encourage you to be brave and to be bold and be willing to be like, you know what? I will spend the next year, figuring out how to quit my job, right? You might not be able to quit your job today. Like, I didn't quit my job day one. I took, a year and a half for me to save up, pay off some debt, right? We moved in with my in-laws for a little bit. Thank God I have good in-laws.
Yeah.
They won't ever see this, but Maria and George Arazda are freaking phenomenal. And then it was like, okay, now we're ready for the rest of our life. Right.
Yeah.
And it just takes bravery. So be bold, be brave, and don't be afraid to say, you know what? No more. Draw the line in the sand and say no more.
Yeah. The land of the free requires that it be the home of the brave, right? It is an absolutely imperative to take on things with courage. That's incredibly inspiring and motivational. Okay, so let's get into some nuts and bolts. Let's talk a little shop here. So let's say we've got one of the things that I'm starting to see is I'm starting to and I feel like there's a lot of conflict that stems from this in the liberty movement, in that we don't quite understand how essentially a sales funnel works, and that there are people at the top of the funnel and people at the bottom of the funnel. And you seem to be one of the few people who sort of gets it, that you don't have to be an anarchist, agorist. And because you believe what you believe, you must drag the likes of, say, a Brad Palumbo or a Kennedy or something like that, where they're more involved and they're sort of on the front lines of reaching to those who haven't heard yet. And you sort of go through this progression of, okay, well, I'm a statist, I'm a full-blown statist. Okay, I'm a little frustrated. All right, maybe I listen to God forbid, it's almost cringy to say it, but like what's his name, Ben Shapiro podcast, and then that leads you to the next level of a Dave Rubin, and then that leads you to this level, and then you start going down the rabbit hole, but that rabbit hole is a journey. You, on the other hand, have like embraced the deepest level of this, which is like anarchist, agorist, like take control of my life, go run the counter economy. But yet you're out here teaching people how to have those frontline conversations. Can you draw a little distinction on what you've seen and how you're able to do that, and what matters in understanding that, yeah, I believe these 100% hardcore things, but I got to remember that these people have to get started on the journey at least.
Yeah, for me, it's reflecting on the fact that, I was a statist at one point, right? And understanding that the people I'm talking to are likely in that same realm. And that's, it doesn't make it awesome, right?
Right.
But it's reality. And we have to accept reality in that point, and understanding that there's no one straight route to get to liberty. There's no one straight pathway, right? As somebody that sells, right, is in sales as a career, you have to understand that while there's some path, typical talk paths or blah, 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 ultimately you have to sell to the individual, right? Mm-hmm. And that means understanding their concerns, understanding their needs and their desires, and then presenting something to that particular person that they can grasp onto. And this is a very diverse world that we live in, right? And people, while we have some general things, like we care about our families, we want our communities to be healthy and our businesses to be healthy, and and our kids to have what they need, right? Once you get past that basic level human instinct, right, people have a lot of different opinions. And what I have found in both in sales and politics is literally just to ask questions. Just to ask questions. People like to talk about themselves, and they like to explain to you what's going on with their life. And if you can do that with a genuine spirit, that's what's key. You can't just sell people, right? Like
Yeah.
we all hate those dirty, salesmen that, they feel
Yeah.
greasy, right? You walk in and
Yeah.
you're like, yeah, I'm never coming back here. But if you
Yeah.
do it with a genuine spirit, like, I just want to make this person's life better because I care about them as a human, you can begin to let them tell their story on what's broken in their life, and then the solutions for liberty are plentiful, right? Like
Yeah.
that's
It's a
when you can
great
open,
product.
right?
We sell a great product, right?
And but what's also equally important there is to understand that you don't necessarily have to hit a grand slam every single time up to bat. You can plant a seed,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
get them interested and get them maybe asking a question that they've never asked before, get them consider a slightly different angle that they've never considered before. And I've got a great example of that. I've got a guy on Twitter, Scott, that's been following me, or not Twitter, Instagram. And he's a, liberty constitutionalist type, but, he's not all the way, right? And we had a
Right.
great conversation the other day about, what if there were no police, right? And I went into that conversation not trying to just convince him that we don't need police. That wasn't
Yeah.
my goal, right?
Yeah.
My goal is to have a conversation and get to know the guy.
Yeah.
That's it. Just get
Yeah,
to know the
that's it.
guy, right? And then from there, what you talk about the sales funnel, right? It's multiple touches. It's
Yeah.
multiple
Yeah.
conversations, and this is where libertarians can set themselves apart. If we can be boldly consistent in our effort, in our messaging, people will begin to trust us over time because we've said the same thing. We've shown that we're different. We're not hypocritical, right? Whether it's guns or this or immigration that, or whatever the topic, if the solution is always human liberty, right? People, while they might push back on certain topics and trust us on others, what they'll begin to see is what you'll begin to do is you'll earn their respect because you're consistent. And when they respect you, they'll care more about what your ideas are. And that's the crux of it. If they don't trust you, they're not going to respect your ideas. And if they don't respect your ideas, they don't care what seeds you planted.
100%.
So
yeah, we our program that we teach talks about how the first layer of the onion is to be likable. Then below that, as you peel it back, is to be trustworthy. And so we lead in with principles, and far too often we get into conversations like you're talking about with people, and we go, well, our principles say X. Guess what? They don't give a shit about your principles. Your principles mean nothing to them.
They don't know what the map is.
They don't care, and they don't care. They don't make any value assessment on what the NAP is. They are thinking in terms of outcomes, right? We are too, but we have found this magical process that leads to the best possible outcomes. So you have to speak in terms of, like you said, what matters to them, and speak in terms of outcomes as well. So, dude, that's awesome. That is exactly like you could do this. You could teach for me. Phenomenal. Okay, where do you feel like as far as local candidates that you've worked with go, where do you feel like some of their biggest misses early on in their campaigns are when they're first getting, because it probably happens gung-ho, they get pissed off about something, or they get rah-rah and they go, I'm going to run for X, right? What are the missteps they do early on?
I think it's a lack of planning is a lot of it, and also a lack of a pointed mission and vision that is maybe above and beyond just getting elected, right?
Yeah.
Libertarians have a great heart for helping people, and if we keep ourselves focused on that, I think we can overcome a lot of the failures that the two parties candidates have. But we don't have the experience on knowing how to get from A to Z, right? And planning, like, what does this essentially business look like of being a candidate, right? Because, I mean, even from a tax standpoint, right? You're filing from a business license as a candidate, right? You're filing for an EIN as a candidate, right? So you're legitimately running a business. And that's a whole different skill set than being a libertarian and having the right ideas. So it's the misstep is knowing how to merge those two things. And perhaps just not having the right plan in place and be successful in the short term and the long term.
Okay. How do you do your planning? Let's go through. This is a really good opportunity because I feel confident you can deliver this. What does a mission exercise look like when you talk about formulating a mission statement? What is going to be the central theme of your campaign? How do you work
Yeah,
that out? Let's get into the nuts and bolts of that a little bit.
dude. I mean, you have to be self-critical is really part of it, right? You have to
Okay.
understand like why is this important to you, right? Why is what you're doing important? What value is it bringing to your life, and why do you want to bring that to other people? And you
Yeah.
literally have to logistically define that for yourself. And it's easy as like, you're bullshitting with a friend, right? You're having a beer, maybe you're talking to your spouse, like, yeah, you know why you're doing this, right?
Yeah.
But legitimately taking the time to actually write it down, think about it, rewrite it, read it back to yourself, and being like, okay, now I'm starting to figure out what this actually looks like. And when you
Yeah.
can define that for yourself, what is your mission, right? So when I ran for office out in Washington, right, of course, my goal was to get elected. That was one of the goals, but my mission was not to win election. My mission was to change people's lives,
Yeah.
right? That's what my mission was, right? So you have to take what you think your goal is or your goals are and actually look even to that next layer of the onion deeper. It's like, our goal isn't just to change a law. It's that we
Right.
don't want people in jail sacrificing their lives for something they don't have to, right? That's the mission. So you have to define that a little bit. Um, and I frankly, I think writing it down as a practice, didn't come naturally to me. I'm not a writer, but it forced me to think about it on a deeper level,
Yeah.
frankly, by writing it down and rewriting it and deleting it a few times. And
Yeah, yeah. That's so true. And you hit on for anybody who's doing this, a great reference out there is Simon Sinek's Start with Why. He talks about how to go through this with business, but in reality, it could apply just as well to a candidate. And one of the things that you just said that it was like a light bulb for me is that if you're going to set a mission, generally, and I'm going to say overwhelmingly. Now there are some instances where this would not apply, but overwhelmingly the majority of the time that mission is some way it revolves around helping others. Helping ourselves is actually not something that really inspires us to action a lot of times, at least in my opinion, from what I've seen. It's that honor of service and making the smile on other people's faces and being able to deliver for others that really sort of drives a mission home of that grind that is going to be being a candidate, and realizing that you're doing this for something beyond self. So okay. Answer me this as you work with a lot of candidates. Should our mission be to spread liberty, or should our mission be to, like you said, win elections?
I think you can do both at the same time. But most
Right?
importantly, and this is one of the problems I have with people within the LP, is they like to force their view on one another, right?
Yeah.
So, which is crazy as libertarians, right?
Yeah,
But
it
there's
is.
so much like, if you're not doing it this way, you're doing it the wrong way, right?
Yeah.
And that's why, like, my website, theroadtoliberty.com, some of my branding behind the Be Free thing, it is really a mantra that I've taken into heart from. And let me back up a little bit, right? When I came into this party, I was a Gary Johnson pragmatist, right?
Yeah.
I'm a
Yeah.
outspoken agrist anarchist, voluntarist now. But how should I say this? I've never, and while I can sometimes be critical of certain policy stances people take, I am
Sure.
almost never critical of the path somebody wants to take to get there, because
Yeah.
there are 6 billion people on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And while there are some best practices that I think we should learn, and some skills and resources we should obtain, the
Yeah.
fact of the matter is like, you and I are different people, right? My wife is different,
Yep.
right? The guys that and the people I was having, drinks with earlier, they're different, right? So there isn't one way to message. There isn't one right
Yeah.
way to do this. If there
Yeah.
was, we would have found it. We would have already had liberty, and we'd be free,
Yep.
and we wouldn't be doing this podcast. So the fact of the matter is, what I want to do is I want to empower people within whatever their idea is, right?
Okay.
If you have an idea, it's like, you know what? I want to just rebuke the system. I don't want people to run for office, and I want to convince them that, they need to work outside the system. It's like, okay, well, I can help you work outside the system. I can help you build that network, and I can help you be successful with that. Also, if you want to run for office and you want to have XYZ type of messaging, okay, let's put a plan together for that so that you can be effective, right? The key here is no matter what path you choose, whatever road, no matter what road you choose to get somewhere, you want to get to where you're going. So let's figure out how to make sure the rubber meets the pavement and you actually get there.
It's interesting that in these liberty circles, I always see people very critical of the lane in which other people choose on this road to liberty, right? They want to be critical of that lane, but for the analogy, and rather than just getting in their lane and dominating and showing that their lane is the way forward. But salespeople seem to understand that anytime I talk to salespeople, we're not critical of somebody who might want to do it in a different lane than we are. And
as long as that commission check hits the bank, we're good.
Right, baby. Like we care about outcomes and results and what really the end result is. And if we can get it in, if these people can get it in their lane and I can get it in mine, I always talk about some great examples. And it doesn't even have to be a sort of messaging or technique or stuff like that. But, like nobody ever criticizes Scott Horton for, basically being a one topic guy. Nobody criticizes Corey DeAngelis for only caring about one thing. And that thing may not be in Scott Horton's case, I think for most of it, it is the number one thing in the hierarchy of outrage, right? But Corey DeAngelis is doing something that is a little further down on the hierarchy of outrage, but he is absolutely dominating it. And he's winning freedom for people in their lives. And so it would be like coming at Corey DeAngelis and be like, you don't care enough about X. It's like, bro, that's your lane. You can go do that. Like, we should not be stopping you from going to do that. Go win in that lane too. But we don't have to be critical of other people choosing a different lane. And I think that's just me preaching as a salesperson, man. We care about the outcomes, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, any strategist, any person that's played a board game, any person that's played a video game or played a sport, realizes like there's lots of game plans.
Yeah.
Right. And some of them work on certain days and some of them don't work. And like you pick up what you can, you learn what you can, you do better the next day, you have more wins that way. And as long as you're learning and growing, you can be successful with an offense first game plan or a defense first game plan, or, you can, come, be aggressive or, more compassionate, right? You can win in all those avenues. And each of those avenues, you can also lose a few times. Right.
Yeah,
and we have to and this is something I want libertarians to think about, and I'm sometimes not perfect at this. It's something that I actively try to work on. We have to forgive each other for our losses. And I don't mean losing an election. I mean for our screw-ups, right? We can't beat each other up over everything. And like that doesn't mean ignore the big stuff, right? I'm not going to get into all that. If you want to get outrage theater about something, all right, whatever. Right. But at least the little things, the human interaction things, like we've got to be a little bit more graceful in those things and let people be human and to make mistakes. Like, I mean, I got a kid. He makes mistakes all the time. Guess what? I also make mistakes and I ask him for forgiveness. Right. Same thing with my wife. And so there's a huge component of this within the liberty movement where we've got to be more patient with one another and be patient with the way people are learning how to do this, right? And that's why I focus most of my outrage theater on the policy. And if I don't feel like somebody's actually standing for liberty, like I'm gonna say something because I'm bold like that. But if you are actually standing for liberty, like as long as you're doing it, like I'll help you, right? I'll forgive you for your shortcomings because God knows I'm not perfect.
Yeah. All right. I cannot think of a better way to conclude. That is a beautiful message right there. Give each other grace for our losses, support each other, have each other's backs. We are on one another's team. So Anthony, tell the good people where they can find you, follow you, and get involved on the road to liberty.
Dude, well, I mean, the hashtags are easy. You can find me on any platform by hashtag the road to liberty. or hashtag be free. My website, theroadtoliberty.com. I've actually got some groups on there that I'm really trying to get going, to give libertarians a place to communicate about libertarian stuff. And I don't mean argue with one another, but I mean providing resources. So there's a county affiliate group in there. So, and there's a candidate group in there, and then there's a general libertarian group, to where the idea behind this is a forum where we can talk and share ideas and share resources. We're recreating the wheel too often. There's so many smart and brilliant people in this movement that are not being properly utilized or utilized at all.
Correct.
So join the roadtoliberty.com. You can also pick up some cool swag there if you want to, screw with the man a little bit and put a t-shirt on or a sticker on your car. But my effort right now is almost purely based on teaching candidates how to run for office. So if you want to help with that, follow theroadtoliberty.com. I do it for free for candidates. I don't charge candidates a dime. I'm working with a handful of candidates across various different states. They can't afford consultants and coaches. They just can't. I've been a candidate. I raised $87,000 as a candidate. That's almost unheard of, right? The limited money that our candidates have, I want going to outreach, right? So I do this work for free for the candidates. And in turn, people donate, they subscribe to my Patreon. It allows me to not have to work for the man, right? And watch my dollar get diminished by the Federal Reserve every single day. And it really puts a voluntary aspect into this. So you can donate on the website, whole 9 yards. Follow me on Twitter and all those different cool spots. But, I'm in this for human liberty. I will stop at nothing short. I've got a kid, right? 6 years old. You got a 10-month-old at home. I will die on this hill for liberty.
100%.
And I want to work with people that are willing to put everything they have into this effort.
Well, there you go, folks. TheRoadToLiberty.com is the website. His name is Anthony Welti. This has been Sell Liberty. Anthony, thank you so much for your time, brother.
No, appreciate what you guys do, man. I loved it.
Absolutely. All right. Well, guys, have a fantastic evening. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time.